Well, hello. As music teachers, how do you find all that motivation for professional development? You're in for a treat today, let me tell you this. Because if you've been teaching for, 20 or 30 years, and that's about as high as we're going to go, right, Gillian?
Yeah, we don't admit to anything over that. Let's
Nothing
not even
over
admit to anything over 20.
That's right, nothing over 20.
No.
Well, just think about it. We really think a lot has changed in the way that we learn and, of course, in the way that we teach, right? And the way that we access information for a continuing education. And today, we're really going to have some fun because we're talking about 3 ultimate music teacher professional development ideas that will have the biggest impact for your motivation in professional development. I'm Glory St. Germain from Ultimate Music Theory, and my special guest and dear friend today is Ultimate Music Theory certified teacher Gillian Erskine, and she has experienced all 3. So welcome, Gillian.
Oh, hi, Glory. It's great to be here.
It is great to be here. I will invite our guests to go ahead and enter in the chat box. How long have you been teaching music? We'll see if anyone will fess up to how long that's been.
20
So,
plus. See whether anyone goes for 20 plus.
yeah, that's right. You can just say, I've been teaching 20 plus years. You don't really have to tell us how many. You can go ahead and share with us. So Gillian, just to let you know a little bit about her, she's a music educator, co-founder and director of Forte School of Music, together with her business partner, Paul Myatt, and they have 17, count them, 17 music schools throughout Australia, the UK, and New Zealand. And Gillian, I guess one of the questions that I wanted to start with tonight was, how have you personally experienced all this continuing education in order to grow professionally? Because you've accomplished an amazing amount, and there's got to be some professional development along the way. So, how have you experienced that in your growth?
Well, I think I'm a constant learner, and to grow something and to grow anything, you have to be, I think, a constant learner. I love learning, and sometimes from the very beginning when I started teaching, which of course I just started teaching like everybody else did, which is the way I was taught. But after a while, I thought, oh my goodness, there's really got to be a better way of doing this, and because at that point, I thought, well, how I learned is like 10 years out of date, but it actually you find out the way I learnt was the way they were learnt, which is the way they were taught, which is the way. So it's like, decades ago. Yeah. And then you start searching. And when you start searching, then you start learning, of course. And so, but over the years, I've learned all sorts. So probably it first started with pedagogy and how to do better ways of teaching. And, oh gosh, I've done all sorts of things. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is, I just love. It's a part of your course, and I just really love brushing up on that as well when I did your course, to help me understand the better ways of communicating with others, and also at the time to help train our teachers and to help our business owners help train their teachers. And over the years, I've learned all kinds of software programs. I've had to build websites. I've done train the trainer, so I could train our teachers and our school owners more effectively to make sure, because it's one thing to teach children, it's another thing to teach adults. And I know you've done a lot on that as well, because you're teaching both. And a couple of last year we launched BlackRock Music, our online shop. So it's been a year building that, but before that I had to do the brief for the developer, so I had to learn Shopify. So it just goes on and on, doesn't it? And last year,
I think you're right, and the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know, and then you have to keep on learning.
Yeah, and you want to, I think, I kind of, and last year I joined a mastermind because I really wanted to learn, be a little bit more, because being with a tribe is so important, I think. And my mastermind is with female entrepreneurs, and it was also an intensive way of me to look at this whole new world of digital and Facebook Lives and all that kind of thing. And also last year, I did Ultimate Music Theory certification, which I did towards the end of last year, which is really great to brush up. So it's about doing, for me, because I have a business in many different areas, it's about professional development across the board of many different things. It keeps it interesting. Yeah, but even your studio music teachers know things like how to connect with your student better, which is NLP type things, and pedagogy, how to teach better. With the ultimate music theory, it was just about brushing up on my theory skills, because it's been such a long time since I did theory, and I'm also an author as well, a co-author of some books, and it's just nice to get involved in those higher level theory skills again that you don't use on a day-to-day basis. So, and I read.
And speaking of books, I think you shared with me one of your favorite books by Marie Forleo.
Oh, I love Marie Forleo. Yes, Everything is Figure-Outable. And I
love that. Everything is Figure-Outable. That's a great title, right?
It is, and it is. Gosh, that is. I was so lucky. I went into Marie came to Australia last year, at the end of last year, and she actually came to Brisbane. And Brisbane's actually not a really big city. Well, it's probably the third city in Australia. And she came and I was in the front row. I was just so excited, and she's just so inspirational. And that little Everything is Figure-Outable has just so stayed with me, because it is right. Everything is figure-outable if you're prepared to learn.
Yeah.
There's Google. Dr. Google knows so much.
And in the olden days, we used to have, they were called encyclopedias.
Oh yeah.
And you had to have the world encyclopedias, and that's how you did research. Now it's a whole different ballgame. You have access to all these online tools, and and as a matter of fact, it's what we're actually talking about today is just different ways of learning. And before we talk about those 3 ultimate music teacher professional development ideas, what was your first professional development experience when you first started teaching?
Well, as you said, there were encyclopedias back in the day. And I think the problem with those were, and my parents bought a set, but they were outdated. Almost, the next year and the next year and the next year. So you had something that was 5 years old. You're thinking, well, is this the most current up-to-date thing? And that's what's so fabulous about internet learning these days. But back in the day, we didn't have that, so we either had to go to books, and there weren't that many books on music piano teaching, or you went to workshops. And so other than my studies, or you went to a teacher, other than my studies as for my teaching diplomas, which I did, my LTCL teachers, LTSL teachers, kind of things, I guess my training was as a Yamaha music teacher. Because when I was on my search for, oh my goodness, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And then searching, I came across Yamaha music education and junior music course and what have you. And I thought, oh, wow, this turned on some lights for me. And I wanted to know more. So I just started with that. And that was going to teacher training workshops in my holidays. Because I didn't have all this convenient online training back then.
Right, and that's true. I mean, you really didn't have the option, because we're obviously going to talk about 3 options today. But I think I want to give a little shout out to Patricia Moore, is just saying hi to us. Gillian, Patricia is all the way out in Victoria, British Columbia. So it's probably beautiful out there. I would love our viewers to just share with us, what is the one thing that they are doing this year for their professional development? So go ahead and share with us in the chat box. What are you doing for your one thing on professional development? So we're looking forward to chatting with you about that. And I do want to say congratulations, Gillian, in continuous professional development, because you really inspire me. And I think recently when you completed the Ultimate Music Theory certification course, oh, by the way, your certificate is in the mail, as they say. So I think that, I really want to say congratulations, because that is a big undertaking. And one of the things that really impressed me was that you were, you're an author yourself, you've written a lot, but you're also always open to learning and being coachable. And you talked about the other groups that you belong to that are, they just keep you thinking, right? I think that's the key, is that you have everything, but when you can talk it through out loud, as they say, that's when the ideas come so quickly. We need that mastermind. We need those coaching calls. We need our support system. And whenever you and I get together, we're always brainstorming, and we got lots of news coming up soon.
Yeah,
so
we do. We do. And I think that's where one of the things I've been thinking about this, talking today. And as piano teachers, it's such an isolated profession. We're mostly teaching from home, our home studio, and other than our students and the parents and whatever, we have very limited time to connect with each other and share that. And, I just think that it's so good. That's what I get out of my mastermind. We meet, and we meet online and what have you. And your coaching calls, you get a chance to actually meet with some other people that are doing exactly the same thing as you are, and experiencing exactly the same problems. And then you hear how they even thought about that problem. You're thinking, oh, that's a good way of thinking about that. Oh, wow, what did you do about that? And they did something that you think, oh, it's just so obvious, but you hadn't thought of it. It's it's just short circuits.
And I think sometimes too that when you do have, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was doing a coaching call with our Ultimate Music Theory certified teachers, and there was a lot of questions that were coming up. And of course, like you said, you're isolated. So who are you going to ask? So when you get that opportunity to have a coaching call, it's like, oh, finally, somebody who gets me, who, when I say, okay, so I have this student, you go, yep, I know exactly what you mean. I can get there, and here's some ideas to help you. I guess one of the questions I had too, I mean, you are professional, you've accomplished so much. What was maybe your motivation for taking the Ultimate Music Theory certification course?
It was really just to brush up and to dive deeply into the world of, theory again, and brush up my knowledge, and just to revitalize that area, and just check out whether things have changed, and perhaps to actually look at it in particularly those advanced, sort of the Ultimate Theory courses in 3 kind of modules, and that particularly really enjoyed that advanced one. I enjoyed all the modules, and I really loved the NLP, the Neuro Linguistic Program, and that sort of, and just so much in there, like teaching classes and things like that. I really enjoyed that was part of it. I thought that was great value. But for me, it was probably those really tricky things. And, even in some of the beginning levels, it's like, exactly how long is that stem length supposed to be? When you're putting, stuff like that.
You obviously experienced Sheila, our and she's so fussy, right? She's
very so
fussy. I think those are important things, because if we as educators are not fussy about that, then the whole art just becomes diminishing, because we're not fussy. It's the same as playing the piano. If we're not fussy with articulation and reading properly and counting and all the things that make music and make it beautiful and enjoyable, theory has the same applications. So we need to be fussy. And so we are fussy too. I guess one of the things I would ask you would maybe, what was your biggest takeaway when you were learning something new?
It just feels so good to learn and to brush up on something I've known for such a long time. And it just makes me feel 100% confident that I've got it. It's like, oh, yeah, I really do have this now. Like, total confidence that I can stand in, rather than if someone questioned me, I went, I think, you think, oh, what's this? And then you think, oh gosh, is that right? It's just like totally clarified again. Because when you do something for a long time, if you learn it such a long time ago, it sort of goes back into the little DNA things in the back of your brain, and just to bring it back forward again. I think that's a really good thing to do.
It really is. And you're right. I think too, even things that I've learned that I maybe am not applying every day, and because I've done a lot of different things like you in my life, that those things I would have to go back and kind of brush up on, because you've stepped away from them for a while. And I guess one of the questions too that I wonder about sometimes is, in connecting with other teachers, and obviously you have many music schools, what do you see as maybe an obstacle that holds teachers back from exploring professional development opportunities?
Well, I think there's a few boats here. And I think for some, they may feel that reaching out to do some learning, they're kind of admitting they're not good enough. And actually, the reverse is opposite. Teachers who reach out and do this stuff are really just rewarded manifold. Like, there's more income, more joy, more confidence. And more joy, because you've got this. There's nothing like knowing that you've got this and totally confident with it. That just makes you feel really good. Better results for your students. Because you'll always, even if you know something really, really well, if you go to a conference or a workshop on it, there's always something new to learn. And very often it's a little shortcut that that hasn't occurred to you. Oh, well, that's just obvious. and why haven't I thought about it? And you've been doing this other thing, and the kids haven't they've been getting it eventually, but you've sometimes had to go a different way about it several times. And then you might get something just cut straight through and you think, oh, that's just a godsend, you know? So sometimes you may not even learn anything new, but, and you even know, you get to know what you've been doing instinctively actually turns out to be best practice. And that feels really great. You think, oh, I was at a professional development workshop earlier in the week, a couple of days ago, and someone said, oh, it's just so good to know. I've been doing that, you know, all the time. And it's so good to know that that's actually the right way. So that's good.
Yeah.
And I think some people might think, oh, I don't have the time. I'm just too busy. And again, the reverse is true, because really many times you learn shortcuts to do things that have been taking you or your students forever to do. And also, you know, think you don't have the time. You don't not have the time. You know, like it's sort of, I think some people think it's too expensive. You know, oh, I can't afford it. Again, many a time you find out some extra tricks that will give you how to earn more in less time. Like your theory classes in the Ultimate Theory thing. I mean, that course, that actually provides teachers with, I think there's two things about doing those the theory classes. One is that you, rather than next, you know, one student after another, blah, 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 it provides a bit of a different thing to do. And but also ability to earn more in that 1 hour than you would ever have earned doing that. And your kids need it, because if they actually have really good theory skills, it makes teaching them so much quicker. They learn so much quicker. You know?
One of the things we actually talked about in the Ultimate Music Theory Certified Teachers Coaching call yesterday was exactly that, Gillian, is just how we can actually help students learn faster. And, you know, because you do group lessons as well, is that it's that cooperative learning theory where you're motivated, you start to share. And when you think about it, it's kind of funny, because I think now we've been talking about mastermind classes, and I think, you know, my Ultimate Music Theory Club classes are kind of like a mastermind group, because they meet once a week. they learn together, they motivate each other, and I think it's kind of a win-win. As an educator, I'm making more money during that hour, but I'm also providing value because they're learning faster, and it's fun, right? And I think one of the things is that we really do. We want to encourage them. We want to inspire them. We want to motivate them. And so it really does help students learn faster.
It does. And I think there's the other thing it does is helps with retention. As a little kid, I just learned privately. So I went to my lesson on my own, came home, practiced on my own, went to my lesson on my own, came home. But I did do theory classes. My music teacher had theory classes every Saturday, every fortnight. On a Saturday. And then she had, it was like a whole Saturday thing. Everybody came. And so you got to realize that you weren't the only one learning piano, you know, because you felt like, and people go, I go out to play in the afternoon. You have to stay home and practice all the time. I thought, well, I'm learning something, but well, you know, I can play and you can't, kind of. We'll see in 10 years time or 20 years time, and now they're the ones that say, hey, you're so lucky you can play the piano. And you think, well, you know, luck actually doesn't have much to do with it, you know.
Yes, you're so right. I remember thinking, you know, we used to have all my friends, my house was always the party house. And now that I look back, it's because I played the piano and I had a set of drums, and, you know, my dad played guitar and stand-up bass and accordion. And so we had all these instruments. And so when you think about it, that's where, you know, people want to go, no matter whether you play sports or any other activities, or you go take dance or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, music is a part of everyone's life, really. That's how they celebrate, you know, most things. So it's kind of fun to know that you're helping your fellow students become sort of the entertainers of the future.
Absolutely. And the theory classes, you know, as I said, they provided, there's a whole group of theory people, there's a whole group of music friends or people I know that do music. And so that was a group of friends that I had that were aside from my school friends. So if things weren't going too good at school, I still had other friends that I could chat to and things like that. And also she had quite an enterprise going, because she had some of her senior students start teaching some of the little ones. And so you got to go, oh, wow, when I get older, I'll be able to do that too. So, and that'll, you know, that's also exciting.
And I think one of the things that you and I are excited to share today is the 3 3, ultimate music teacher professional development ideas. I think it's time we share these, Gillian,
sure.
because they're good tips. And, you know, I'm a constant learner, as are you. And when I learn something, it's really fun to share those things. So here is our professional development idea number 1. And that is in-person events. So workshops and conferences. And I think no matter where you live, there's always an excellent opportunity, as you said, to attend a live event. You can learn from industry experts that teach about different music education topics, get to meet these people in person. And with so many options, where would we start, Gillian?
Well, of course, there's your local music store,
Right.
some of the colleges, if you're near a local college, and Music Teachers Association groups. And there's international. You can just Google it. You know, where's it? And next week, I'm going to Piano Pivot Live. Tim Topham's running Piano Pivot Live in Melbourne, and so I'm very excited because we're going to be doing live at Piano Pivot Live and bringing interviews free of charge to everybody with where we're interviewing the presenters. So it's going to be great. But also almost always there are teacher workshops in those larger holiday periods, particularly summer. And right now in Australia, we're in now summer break. And this week I went to 2 workshops. One was held in a music store and the other one was held at the Music Teachers Association. So I've been teaching for a long time, and my business partner and I actually are keen to give back to the music profession. So we've been also doing that Piano Teaching Success TV. And as I said, next week we're live at the live. So it's going to be good.
And I think those are really, really great things to think about. And sometimes I think we don't. I talk to music educators and they think, well, I don't know what I'm going to do to stay motivated. And I say too, well, you know, sometimes even contacting local music stores, they'll send out a little flyer, or, you know, I know for myself, in a couple of weeks, I'm traveling to Vancouver. I'm doing a live event for Long and McQuaid. At I guess it's the end of January, and so I'll be presenting a workshop there. And of course, you and I are heading to MTNA
in Chicago,
which is going to be amazing. In-person events, they give you that opportunity to connect and explore. And I think sometimes an interesting thing too is that if you're a music teacher, like if you teach piano, I think it's fun to really explore. And this is the great thing about going to conferences like Piano Pivot, and you may hear speakers there that are maybe speaking on a topic that you never thought about before. So if you hear someone talking about, you know, piano or drums or voice or music theory or learning styles or whatever it might be, you might think, oh, I never thought of that before. So, you know, as a presenter, I know that I always want teachers to walk away with a notebook full of ideas, because that's really, you know, how it is. And I think it's important for us to really network and have those opportunities. So after attending, so you're going to be attending these in-person event, what do you think is the key to implementing all of these teaching ideas, Gillian?
Well, I think it's just choose one thing and do that, because it's just so easy to become overwhelmed by all these wonderful ideas, particularly if you go to something like an MTNA where you've got a 4-day event, intensive event, there's all these streams going on, and you from dawn to dusk, you're here and you're there and you're there and you're taking on all this sort of stuff, and you haven't really got time to even think about it too much from one day to the next. And so it's just I think it's best if you just, you know, think about what could I do? And I think and then in deciding that, I think there's two ways that I look at it. One is, what's the game changer? What could I do here that's going to be a real game changer? It might be something that's going to take a bit longer to do. Or if I could choose one thing that's easy that I can do tomorrow, what would that be?
Right.
So I think that's a good place to start. And then as you get really good at this, then you can go, oh, I'm going to do 2 things.
Yes, right.
I think that one of the other things that about in-person workshops is, please talk to the person next to you. You know, strike up a conversation. So many times when you're waiting for the presenter to start, lots of people just sitting there, dum-dee-dum-dee-dum. And, you know, there's just a wealth of knowledge and experience in the room. You know, and
absolutely.
And so make sure you mix and mingle. And,
you know what? I just want to underline what you just said, and then caps in bold. And I'll tell you why. As a presenter, and you may have experienced this as well, unless the room is packed full, as people are coming into the room, I see one teacher sitting here,
Yes.
and then the next teacher will sit 3 rows over and 2 back.
Yeah.
And then here and then there. And they all sit by themselves with, like, they don't sit beside each other. Whereas if you think of going to a concert, you would almost all want to sit in the front row.
Yes.
And you don't care if you have to sit beside someone because you want to sit in the front row. And I do find that. And I love that you just said that. And I really encourage you, whether you're coming to, the MTNA conference, to come and hang out with Gillian and I and all the rest of the people there. But when you come to those workshops, forget sitting in a row by yourself. Go sit with whoever is there right beside them and say hi, introduce yourself, because they're going to share something and you get to make a friend. And obviously you're from the same, area or areas of ideas.
Yeah.
I really like that. That's a
and at one time, I often think sometimes, you're sort of getting dressed for the thing and you think, oh, can I be bothered? Because we all think that. And then I just go, whoop, stop. If I learn one thing today, it's been worth it. And you come away going, oh my God, I really got to get out more often. You just think, oh my goodness, I just had this injection and it's so good. And the best thing that you learn actually could come from the person you're sitting next to.
Right.
Gosh, how often does that happen,
Yeah, I think I've met a lot of people, well, obviously you included, even though we haven't met in person, but we're going to.
Yeah.
But just through not being afraid to say hi.
Yes.
Right? Just reaching out and going, hello. I mean, the worst thing is they'll just tell you to go away. But for the most part, I think music teachers are pretty friendly. So I think if you learn one thing, one idea to implement, certainly that's the key to success, and you're on your way.
And can I just say one more thing about the where you sit? And as you say, you see people coming in. Invariably, I also see, and our natural inclination is to sit in the back row, or the sort of maybe the middle row. But more recently, and certainly that's what I did, because I was sometimes a bit of a rebel at school, so I was the rebel up the back. But I've really found the best learners sit at the front.
Yes, you are right.
Sometimes you have to take a deep breath. I just walked in the front and you sit down. But boy, it's so much better in the front row.
It is. It is an interesting thing. I remember when I was doing my pedagogy, and I remember this so distinctly. And when we came into, it was in a private music teacher's home, and it was quite a large room, and she had a few chairs and then about 3 couches or sofas where you could sit 3 or 4 people. And we were about 15 people, and we're taking our pedagogy with her. And I always sat in a certain chair. It was my chair.
Yeah.
And one day when we all took our places, and it's almost like cattle. You always go in the same stall. You don't even have to tell them, hey, bossy, you go there. Like the cow just goes.
Yeah.
So I remember, little segue story, but I remember my grandpa was a farmer, and he said, you want to see how smart cows are? And he would open the barn door and say, bossy, you go there. And he had their names above, and they'd all go where they belong. And then later I found out they weren't that smart. It was just a habit. At any rate, so there I am, sitting in my chair, and our teacher said to us, all right, now I want everyone to stand up and move one to the right. So now it put me on a couch where I was sitting, with 3 other people, and someone was sitting in my chair, so to speak. But it made me very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And she just talked about how when you are a leader, you naturally want a leadership role of independence. And so it put us all out of our comfort zones. But it's really interesting. And it also, like you said, if you always sit at the back, challenge yourself to sit in the front row, and it might make you feel really uncomfortable. But I think that's a good experience, because your student, do you know how uncomfortable that student feels when they have to go and play at a festival or for an exam or a performance for a recital? Like, they're completely, and so I think we need to experience that. I'm all about, if I tell my students to do something, I need to do it too. And I think that's a good lesson, because I'm kind of a sit at the back kind of person, except if I go to a conference where, like when I went to Chicago, it was a week-long business conference, and I paid a lot of money to be there. And I sat in the front row because I went, I don't want to miss a thing. Like, I don't want to be distracted.
I did that with my mastermind. I'm up the front. I'm not going to miss a thing. This is expensive.
They just had their laptop open. They were checking their email. And I thought, man, I didn't pay $10,000 to be here. to watch you do email. But anyway, it's going to be fun. I do want to mention the dates. So MTNA conference, national conference, is in Chicago. It's March 21st to the 25th. And I'm going to be presenting a live showcase there on Monday, the 23rd. So make sure and come and see us. And Gillian and I are both going to be there. She's got a booth there as well. So doing the intervals is going to be super fun. So check it out. Come see us. That brings us to professional development idea number 2, which is webinars. Oh, we have some more joining us there. Hello, Vanessa. So go ahead and share in the chat box, what is your favorite way of learning? We've just talked about live events, and now we're talking about professional development number 2, which is webinars. So the cool thing about webinars is you can do it in your home. You can do it when it fits your schedule. And I'm a huge fan of professional development webinars because you can attend them in your pajamas if you want to. Except
no
if
one
you're
knows.
like Gillian and I, then you cannot. But otherwise, you can. So question for you, Gillian, what is the biggest advantage or disadvantage of learning through webinars?
Well, I think, as you said, it's easy. You don't have to drive there. You don't have to get dressed and put the makeup on and, get yourself all presentable and drive there and all that kind of stuff. So, it's time effective, and you can do it in your jammies. You can what have you. Yeah. But they are at specific times. So sometimes webinars are offered with the follow-up replay type thing. And that can be good to catch up if you can't exactly make that webinar at that time. But attending live, usually a little bit like this, gives people an opportunity to actually ask a few questions or to participate a little bit in a way where they might have a burning question they want to answer, and they get it answered there and then. So I think that's really good. But I think it's, super convenient is probably one of the good things. And also I think that it's timely, that it's on at this time. So you do it, and almost it doesn't force you to do it because it's up to you to whether or not you're going to show up. But but if you say I'm going to do a webinar 4 times a year, you actually get them in. It's sort of almost taking the thinking out of it, and you don't have to actually, like those in things like MTNA only come around once a year. NCKP only comes around every 2 years. And so they're very chunky, and that you don't get to, and they're expensive. You've got to get to them if you don't live in the same place and all the rest of it. So, these are they're usually inexpensive. That's another thing, inexpensive. So I think they're an easy way of doing, and they're quite personable. You feel as though you've got a bit of a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great to do the live events because you get to network and have that one-on-one conversation and without any distractions. But as you said, it comes once a year or twice a year, and you got to plan for exactly that time, and you got to save money. And so, I mean, it's worth it, but it's a different way of learning. And when you come on and you really want to supercharge your teaching, not just once every 2 years, but you want that feedback, then I think one of the biggest things when you're signing up for a webinar is to really show up. Because when I personally sign up for professional development, one of the things I'm really make an effort to do is to show up live. Because as a presenter, I know I truly feel that those people that show up live, they benefit more than those that just are watching the replay. Because as you said, you can ask questions live, you get them answered, so I think with that, it really is an opportunity. Like, you're just there, you can't touch them, but you are still having that conversation, which is how when I became, great friends, is we just connected and have these visual conversations. So I think that really is a fun part. I think
Vanessa actually might live in Australia. Do you live in Australia, Vanessa? Because she's saying specific times for live webinars are hard if they occur at midnight here. Honey, I hear you.
Yes, I love them, as my location means loads of driving. Do you know what's interesting, Vanessa? As a matter of fact, the reason that I'm doing this interview with Gillian, it is 6 p.m. Central Time for me. I'm in Canada. And of course, Gillian, it's 10 a.m., 10:30 right now for you, right?
In Australia,
So
the next day.
Andy, she's in the future.
I'm in the future.
I know it's me. All good. And one of the things, as a matter of fact, I did my coaching call last night, and it was 7 p.m. for me here, because we have Ultimate Music Theory certified teachers in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, and Australia, and the US, and Canada. And so I have to make sure that, no one is getting up before 8 in the morning or staying up until after 9 p.m. So it's tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. And you're really good at that. I think you are really good at it. Vanessa lives in Western Australia in the country. So, yeah, so this is early in the morning for her. It's something like 7:30 or something, isn't it, Vanessa?
Yes, yeah, 8:30. Well, thanks for joining us, Vanessa.
So she's good.
Just have her coffee.
On a Saturday morning. Like she's definitely in her jammies.
We might have to put her on camera. So one of the questions then I would have for you, Gillian, when you are watching webinars, you're an attender, what is maybe your favorite thing about absorbing that information within a webinar?
Well, I think it's really good to take notes. The old-fashioned thing of taking notes is really good. And then implementing it straight away, because it's all very good to take notes and then it sort of, you'd close the notebook and then, about 4 months' time or next year, you find that book and go, oh, yeah, that was a really good idea. I never did anything. And that the sort of impetus, that sort of the energy and the motivation and all of that sort of thing to actually do it is kind of lost. And you've kind of forgotten some of those little unique details about why you wanted to sometimes. So just get straight in there and do it, I think is a really good
that's a very good tip. Yeah. That's a very good tip. One of the things that I always do when I do handouts for my webinars, because I want you to take notes. And just a little side note is that the act of writing, when you write things down, you actually retain 30 to 40% more information than just through, regardless of whether you're a visual or auditory learner. When you write things down, you process the information and you have a better memory of it. And one of the things I always add in at the last sheet is, what was your key takeaway, like from the webinar today? And then what is your one action step? Because that's the important thing. Just do one thing. Yeah. But to attend a webinar and go, oh yeah, that was good, and then walk away and
it's just a waste of time. I mean, I'm a big subscriber to Learning Has No Burden, or Learning Has No Burden, but still, it's still a waste of time. It is not to do one thing, little thing.
Yes. Okay. So it's embarrassing glory story time. So I know, I can't believe I did this, but at any rate, I spent an entire weekend of my life attending this massive webinar. It was 5 hours a day for 3 days in a row. And it was about how to write a book in a weekend and, make $1 million. It was in my very young years. And I went, oh, wow, I'm going to make $1 million. I'll just do this 3-day, webinar. And I was diligent. I even said to my husband, tut, 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 bring me lunch. I'm doing this. It's going to be 3 days and I'm going to make $1 million. So here's what happened. I was there for all 3 days. In fact, I even did take notes. But what I didn't do is I didn't write down my key takeaways, and I did not write down any action steps. And therefore, that binder, which I may or may not have somewhere in this house, it just got left behind. And so that weekend is lost. I can't get that time back. And I didn't implement anything because there was no follow-up. And I think the one thing that you said today, Gillian, was to do one thing, take notes, and as you've heard me say a million times, is speed of implementation. Yes. Like that to me is the key takeaway too, is not just do one thing, but do it now. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You really want to do it now. So I have another little question. Well, we've got Vanessa.
And don't think about it too much. Sorry. And don't think about it too much. I mean, I know sometimes I've done something and I've gone and I think, oh gosh, I need compose, create. Wendy, anyway, she has this thing about rhythm cup. Yes, I really got this. So I just went, I thought, oh, it's brilliant. So when it started, and I just got into action. I just went in the shop, I bought the cups, and I came home. And now, if I had thought about it for too much, I probably would have thought, oh, I don't know which cups I want, and I don't know where I'm going.
Okay, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what you're saying for our viewers. So I know Wendy Stevens, and I know the cup song. Yeah. And I want to share with you, it's actually a video on YouTube that I was inspired by her video on doing different things with cups. And so if you go to our YouTube channel and put in jingle bells in Ultimate Music Theory, you'll see what I did with the bells, same kind of thing. Gillian, I went, I need cups. And I went into my cupboard, and by fluke, I had red cups because we'd had a Christmas party like a year ago, and I still had like 30 red paper cups. And we did that, the cup song. But we did that rhythm, but we sang Jingle Bells. So it was a mind split because you had to sing these words, but do these.
It's always good, those things. Yeah.
But it was just that. It was speed of implementation. Yeah. Like, don't think about it. Like you said, well, what color of cup should I get?
How many do I need? And then you're thinking, what am I? It's a bit like when you buy apps, you buy an app and you're thinking, oh, do I need this one? It's like $1.99. And you're thinking, oh, I don't know whether I need that one. I'm thinking, like, why are you taking a half an hour to decide whether you're going to spend $1.99?
Right? Yeah, just do it. Oh, that's pretty fun. Speaking of webinars, I do want to invite our listeners today to join me for my upcoming masterclass. It's at teachmusictheory.com, and I'm going to present a real powerhouse masterclass on how to teach music theory. You also get a professional development certificate, so you can go to teachmusictheory.com and you can register for that. I think teaching has changed dramatically, which is really so much different. I mean, I started teaching when I was 16 years old. So as you said, we're only talking about teaching more than 20 years, even though it's been, a few more.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think in order to keep up with students that challenge you and parents that demand your attention, and then there's the rescheduling, and then there's our personal goals of running a profitable and successful teaching studio. And there's just a lot of things that we as educators have to think about right now. And in order to keep up with everything that's going on, I think it really brings us to professional development idea number 3. And this really, for me, is a big one. I work with a lot of coaches in my life that keep me in track in different ways. Everything, I actually have a trainer. Yes. Doing weights and strategist and things like that, because I need to feed my mind as well. And idea number 3 is online courses, teacher training. And I think once you've attended maybe a live event, or you've just begun your professional development process, you've maybe attended a webinar, you've gone to a conference, those are all great, right, Gillian? You're there once, you do one thing and you take action and you go, yes. And you watch a webinar and you learn something, and you might buy the book. But then there is the time to say, I'm going to commit, as you did with your mastermind group. I'm going to commit. This is something that's going to help me grow. Yeah. And it truly does. Like I know for myself, it's been leaps and bounds since I've, moved on with my coaches. Does it cost me money? Absolutely. Are they worth it? Absolutely. So I think it's time to kind of think about, the vision of who do I want to become? Someone asked me once, I had a quote, and I said, it's not what you get, but it's who you become. Yes. And I said, I can't even take credit for that quote, because I learned that. And I think it's one of those things that really resonated with me, to say, okay, it's not what you get, but it's who you become. And it's really what I want to become as an educator. So I know we've been talking a little bit, Gillian, about the Ultimate Music Theory certification course. But I guess one question is, so you signed up for the course, and you said, now, how did you immerse yourself to say, it's a big course?
It is a big course.
You needed to say, I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do this. What was your kind of path to say, I got to make this happen?
Well, in the first couple of videos, actually, you do give us all a lot of tips about what to do in terms of setting aside time and what have you. What worked for me, and again, this is all about what works for you, really. Hala's here. Hello, Hala. Yeah. The best learning was probably, I had the complete book in front of me, the really thick one, and I also had the answer book. I thought that was really, really good. And I was just playing videos, working my way through it one after another. I really loved the NLP videos in it, and many a time I would actually put the track on faster speeds, particularly in the earlier ones, because I kind of knew all that stuff, and it was just really a recap. And very often with the NLP ones, I played them because they were I just wanted to see exactly what you said with those. But I slowed it down when I got to a part where I wanted greater clarification. And if sometimes I replayed certain parts of videos to clarify a point again, and if I was working through a question and I thought, what exactly do they want there? That's when I dived into the answer book, and went, oh, okay, that's how they want it, because it's about.
Did you set aside though, because when you start a course, and I know because I'm in the middle of a few courses that I've purchased, a year ago. And so what was your process to take it through to completion? Did you have a dedicated time, or did you just say, I'm going to do this every day? Like, how did you go through the process of committing
I had to set aside time in my diary to do it. And I have a planner book where I go, right, and I do time chunking. So I had to chunk time. So I said, well, I'm going to do it then. Very often for me, that was on the weekends. That I was a Sunday, or very often the weekends that I did that. And a quieter time on the weekend around the family, and often in the kitchen. I have a computer in the kitchen, so I just I'd put it on the kitchen computer, and I'd be, sometimes cleaning down the kitchen and going, oh, hang on a minute, let's get back. In the early stages, not the advanced step. I just had to sit down and bury with my books and just focus on all of that one. But so sometimes it was upstairs with the family, because I have my offices downstairs. So if I was dedicated and having to do it in the learning environment, I was downstairs at my office, at my desk, with everything in front of me, all ready to go. Yeah.
Yes. And I really think that is the key too. And especially what you said about dedicated time. I mean, the journal that you've created is amazing. And I thank you for it, because it's on my desk and I really love it, because it does help you plan things out. I do have to tell you a funny story about your journal, because I'm using it. And my day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah, don't go to sleep from 6 o'clock, do I?
and then the journal says 8 a.m. And I went, well, I'll just have to add 6 a.m. I'm a morning person as opposed to late at night. So I thought, well, I could just kind of juggle this around. But I think the key is really to finding the time. Like, when is your time? That to me is the biggest thing. Is, you take time to teach, you take time to be with your family, you take time to clean your house, you do your laundry, you go do emergency things that but somehow our personal professional development is always the last thing on the list. And it needs to be the first thing on the list, because you are growing, professionally in your own mind, and whether it's physical or mental, it's helping you become a better educator, a better parent, a better, friend, and all of the above. I do have a question though. What was your biggest aha moment when you received feedback from Ultimate Music Theory Examiner Sheila McKibben-Uren?
Well, Sheila is fantastic, and she's very encouraging, and she's also very detailed in her feedback, and very exacting in her marking. So there's actually no fudging it. Like, you have to be 100% accurate in every single little detail, which is, I think, is really good, right? Because that's what you want when you do a course like this. You want to be able to be picked up on all of those tiny little details, so that you can then pass all those tiny little details on to your students. And I'm not sure there was a single aha moment. There was kind of lots of clarifications on lots of little details, like, and the exact stem length of notes above and below the stave. It's easy in the stave, and you just tend to do, when you've been doing this for such a long time, you just write the way you've always written. It's right. It's actually correct. But when you're actually having to explain it to another person, you're thinking, should it go there? Should it go there? Like, should it finish on that line? Should it finish in the space? Should it finish on the bottom line? You're just knowing exactly. And it can get tricky when you're working with, and things like placing accidentals on cluster chords, which can get tricky if you're working with multiple accidentals which clash, or if you stack them, So that was really good to revise all that. Proper use of sharps and flats, which notes to use in things like whole tone scales, which, we're really familiar with writing things like, major scales, harmonic minor scales, harmonic scales, that kind of thing, but not things like, how to write a whole tone scale, or modes, the mode scales, and things like starting on the leading note of a melodic minor scale, doing an ascending and descending scale. Inverting compound intervals, especially that augmented second, and like what is because an augmented second. Some little stuff really had to think, because it's that multiple complications, and dealing with the multiple complications and unraveling them to a more simplicity, and then complicating them again. Yeah, it's just really good for the brain.
And what's interesting is that in my lifetime, BC, before computers, a very dear friend of mine was actually a copyist. And a copyist will take an original score. Ron Paley is a big band leader here in Winnipeg, Canada. And so he writes for big band, and his handwriting is atrocious. And her job was, as a copyist, to take his disaster and transcribe by hand, this is before computers, by hand, the score for the trumpet player, for the guitar player, for the horn section, for the, like, whoever it was. And she needed to have accuracy. And even when I think about my husband, he's also a composer and entertainer. When he writes his music, and even my daughter, she's a music producer in Las Vegas. And yes, of course, she does everything on the computer. But I can also tell you that she will take manuscript paper or, just staff paper. And it's kind of funny because she said to me one day, she goes, Mom, I need staff paper. Where's your staff paper? And I said, go to ultimatemusictheory.com, free resources and staff paper, and hit print. Anyway, it was funny. So of course, off she goes to the piano, and there she is writing her music. And if you don't know how to notate, well, then you still need to know how to write.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. As you know, I compose quite a lot, and I just find, like anything creative, the organic way of writing allows us to, it's just like learning how writing down activates different areas of the brain, and it makes the learning much more stick and what have you. When you're creating and writing music and thinking of music, to actually get a digital thing, it just interrupts all of that creativity. And I think, kids, we all need to know how to do it.
We do,
organically, or whatever we like to call that, the old-fashioned way. It's not really, and it's so much quicker.
It is true.
And I think that's part of the thing, that how it interrupts the process when you're having to actually, get things in the bar sorted out and get the time and all that kind of quantizing and all that kind of thing sorted. If you can just freely write, and sometimes when you're writing, you're just hearing it in your head, so you're not having to play it. You just and then you go back and it's just very organic, isn't it? So
it is very organic. As a matter of fact, when I was writing my Ultimate Music Theory workbooks, I did all of the notation. Everything was by hand, and it wasn't until after I had done everything that then I went and got out Finale and was typing things into that. Because even as I was composing all those little songs, immediately staff paper at the piano, play it, don't change it. It is that way for me anyway.
Yeah, for me too. And I was actually laughing to myself, Paul, on top of all of those skills that your friend had to do, when I'm composing with Paul, I'll just say, oh, here you go, I've done it. And so he goes, oh yes, thank you. And now I have to interpret, not only because sometimes I'm just hearing it, I'm in F major or something, and I'm just hearing a key, and I might not put the accentals in for something or other, and he's just got to then go and interpret, she meant that. She didn't mean that. She meant that. So he goes, I have to do a whole other layer. I think I'll just, whatever. I have to be.
Well, I guess it brings us to our final question. So why is it important to engage in all three professional development ideas that we talked about today? So live events and webinars and online courses, and go.
Well, for variety is the spice of life, isn't it? And it's a bit like, visual, auditory, kinesthetic learning and presenting that multimodal approach to our students. This is sort of a multimodal approach to learning, and too much of any one thing, I think, is boring, can get boring. And also you're limited. The workshop will be about, if you're going to a workshop, a 3-hour workshop, it's about one specific little thing. But it takes a long time to stack those workshops up if you really want to learn a lot. And so, the in-person workshops are only a few times a year, not really enough to get a good invigoration and injection of new energy into our teaching. But great to touch base and enjoy the company of other people. And who are doing exactly what you're doing and facing the same challenges as you facing on a day-to-day and are overcoming them and getting some great ideas. And webinars, well, I think they just give that injection of new ideas too. And you can take them at any time, really. And there's more and more coming online, and there's plenty of access to those if you want to. And podcasts, that's another way of sort of getting a webinar.
Right.
And it's good to do, and you can do these a few times a year. Again, you get that with a webinar, you're getting that instant feedback and connection with the presenter. I think that's really great. And the online courses are really great for getting that intense learning, something you really want to improve and go really deep on it and in depth. And really, the online courses are where a lot of deep learning can occur, can it? And you can do it at your own pace. If you want to do it super quick or super slow or anywhere in between, you can.
Yes.
And I think one of the great things, in most professions, you're looking at law. My husband's a lawyer. He has medicine, physiotherapy. My friends are physiotherapists. They require practitioners to do a minimum of something like 10 hours of professional development a year in order just to maintain their registration. So if they don't do those 10 hours, they are not allowed to practice. And I think that's a really great guide to use just for as a minimum, actually I find learning, I like you and Glory, I think you're one of the greatest learners. Always doing this course and that course and this course, and and when we get together, no wonder, like we're doing a week together soon. I can't wait.
I know, it's great.
Because you go, have you sort of seen this? And I go, no. And Marie Folio, we've both read certain things of that. We're going to compare all our notes, and it's going to be so exciting. And it's just addictive when you start to learn. You just think, oh, the world of opportunity opens up, and
absolutely.
And then you start to think, oh, what else could I learn? And what else could I do to make my life better or help me do a better job, which all makes you feel better and so on. So rather than being an imposition, it's actually fantastic.
It is. I think once you commit to having, like for me personally, my study time is 6 a.m. till 8. So 2 hours, Monday to Friday. That's my dedicated time to just professional development. Whether I'm reading, and I like to engage in all three modalities. So I like to read. I'm always reading a book. I want to get the one that you mentioned about everything is
figure outable. It's fantastic. And she takes you through like almost like a process, because some of this, and you touched on this earlier, it's about having, what is your ideal life? What is it that you want to do? You are a unique person that only you have your talents, skills, and abilities. And what is it that you want to bring to the world? And she helps you uncover that and helps you bring that out. I think that's really great. Vanessa's just said that she first started teaching violin students age 7 and 8 music theory, and was still at school some 25 years ago. How it was an awesome baptism of fire of group teaching. She had to learn real quick. And she just said, I wish I had these webinars and easy access to professional development back then. It would have just avoided so many hiccups.
And I want to say a congratulations for Vanessa for being live with us today, because it just goes to show that there's this other medium where, we're in all different places of the world, and you can still connect and hang out, whether you're on Facebook, and webinars for the most part are free. I mean, the education that you can get, even if you, go onto YouTube, like there is just, it's unlimited. So those people that say, well, I can't afford to go travel halfway across the world. Well, guess what? You don't have to. I can't afford to buy a course or an app for $1.99. Well, guess what? You don't have to. Like, there is so much free education that there's no excuse. And then there are courses that you need to pay money for, and they're worth usually way more than what you're even paying for, because you're going to make that money back. And the other reason I think it's important to invest in your own education, for me anyway, is that when I pay for an online course or when I buy a book, I read it. I take the course because I've paid for it. So there is that next level of commitment to say, I'm doing this. And, you and I have got a, project that we're working on that we will reveal at a later date, but it's because we want to present, education and help educators. And I think at this point, we're giving them so many opportunities. I mean, I want to say thank you for sharing your insights into our three ultimate music teacher professional development ideas. I know you and I are both passionate about providing education and all the opportunities, because we've done all three, you and I, and they're there for our teachers. I just think that it's a great opportunity, and I really invite teachers to check it out. I mentioned earlier that I'm doing a free masterclass, yet again, another freebie for you. Simply go to teachmusictheory.com. And I want to say thank you so much to Gillian for being here today and sharing.
And I do want to encourage you, if you've done theory of even, like, I did up my grade 5 AMEB, which is Australian thing, examination board theory. This definitely takes you on to that next layer of I think, and there's a little bit more to it than the theory, because there's all of the principles of teaching, and then also how to run the classes and teaching techniques regarding that, and lesson plans. It's all there. Easy.
We really want to provide you with that full education.
Yeah, and it's really great. I just thank you so much for this fabulous resource that you've developed for us all. It is truly, truly wonderful. It's a gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing our viewers over on teachmusictheory.com. Got that masterclass coming up. Now, if you've enjoyed our video today, please like, comment, share, join our Ultimate Music Theory Facebook group so you can network with all these fabulous teachers, such as Gillian, of course. And if you want all the latest interviews and music theory tips, just subscribe to our Ultimate Music Theory YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little button on the top so that you get notifications when we release our new videos every week, so you won't miss a thing. So be joyful and teach with passion. Thanks again, Gillian.
Bye.
Bye now.